I want to welcome you to the beat. I'm Ari Melber. We can smile sometimes. I definitely like smiling with my colleagues, although we also have a lot of important, significant, and at times quite concerning news tonight. Number one, the Trump administration is taking the huge luxury jet gift from Qatar. It may still cost taxpayers a lot. It may not even be constitutional. I have a report with new material from one of the top ethics lawyers in the country about what could be done about it, because if the Congress doesn't approve it and the courts think it's a gift, after all this, Trump still might not get his hands on it. That's coming up tonight. Also, a setback in the Speaker's plan to try to gut Medicaid. This is important. One of those things where you say, how closely should you follow the Congress if the thing's not even going to happen? But the things that could happen could affect millions of people's health insurance. We want to keep an eye on the things that matter, so we're going to get to that tonight as well. We begin with the Trump administration taking these moves that, according to the ACLU, to other legal experts, and to judges, to the extent we're hearing clues from judges, involve the administration blatantly abusing governmental nonpartisan power for partisan political ends. That might make cases fall apart. It might be what's called selective prosecution. And in some cases, depending on where it ends, it could lead to the kind of hearings and oversight and loss of jobs or law licenses if the rules hold. Now, let me tell you exactly an example today, as we heard a rebuke from a federal judge in the heart of this clash that has been riveting America and concerning so many people. Recall that the administration has targeted Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver in her first court appearance today. This is for the breakdown at that ICE facility where there was a scuffle, but very few legal experts thought there were the grounds to charge Democratic officials. But she was indicted on this alleged assault. She's released now on her own recognizance. Sometimes these kind of hearings can be straightforward, even dry. Sometimes you get a clue of where the judge is at, but sometimes you get fireworks. Now, in that hearing, it's pretty dry. She comes and goes, and we'll get more coverage, more indication of where the courts are on that soon enough. But a judge scolding the Trump DOJ, which again is pursuing her on that day's incident for a related, now collapsed case and arrest the same day of the Newark mayor, Ras Baraka. Those charges were dropped. I told you the case collapsed. But we still are hearing from a judge on that matter, which relates to the congresswoman, because it's all around the same day, saying this was a worrisome misstep. An arrest of a public figure is not a preliminary investigative tool. It's a severe action, meaning you don't arrest the opposing party first when they're doing their job or in their own jurisdiction. It's a last resort if you have enough evidence. And here, with the case collapse, it looked like not that. The judge saying the apparent rush in this case, culminating in the, and he's referring to the Trump DOJ, embarrassing retraction of the charges, suggests a failure to adequately investigate. Furthermore, quote, he says to the Trump-appointed DOJ lawyers, your role is not to secure convictions at all costs, nor to satisfy public clamor, nor to advance political agendas. The clear view of the judge there, who is nonpartisan and supposed to just follow the facts, was that the Trump DOJ had an agenda, an illicit one, against Democratic Mayor Baraka. He is a man in the news, and he's here, my leadoff guest. So we're going to hear from the mayor after that big court hearing today momentarily. I just want to say before I bring the mayor in, this isn't happening in a vacuum. When you follow the facts, we are seeing in real time Trump ramping up the targeted opposition of what can only be seen as critics or the opposition party. The DOJ has criminal investigations now open against one of the most famous Democrats you can think of. And again, whatever you think of his politics, he was actually encouraged and then ultimately pushed to leave office early in New York. Plenty of New Yorkers have political issues with him. But now we have the appearance of what many experts say is the political targeting of him by the Republican Trump administration. They're investigating Andrew Cuomo. The Times calls it singling out a political target. Meaning, according to the New York Times, the headline, the most important part, is the targeting, not what might be a pretextual reason to go after him, which has to do with things he said about the COVID response. This probe was launched by a very controversial Trump official, Ed Martin, who heads the DOJ's what they call weaponization group. The New York Times says he wants to use his authority to discredit those he believes to be guilty, even if he cannot find the legally required sufficient evidence to prosecute them.
If they can be charged, we'll charge them. But if they can't be charged, we will name them. And we will name them. And in a culture that respects shame, they should be people that are shamed.
An extraordinary kind of confession that he will use the investigative process, the powerful tools of federal government, which of course include, when approved, subpoenas, looking through your materials, whether you know it or not, private wiretap surveillance. But if he can't find a crime, he's going to shame you. There is a pattern here. I'm not talking about what Trump said on the campaign trail, although some of that makes him look bad. I'm talking about the Trump administration using executive power to target, investigate, and go after a whole span of what they view as opponents. We're about to hear from Mayor Baraka, who has been clear from the start.
They're on this,
Mhm.
I'm gonna arrest judges, mayors, whoever's like there in charge. I just want to show that we have power and authority, and you're not going to defy us, and we're going to get whoever it is. You can get it too, type of thing, right?
Mhm.
I don't even think it's directly about me. I think it's about them and them trying to prove to everybody that they're untouchable and they basically do what they want to do.
Newark Mayor Baraka joins us now. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We've learned a lot, including from today's hearing. Before we get to that, let's just say this case fell apart against you quickly. Walk me through what happened from when you were arrested on a property that now they say you had every right to be on, so not legally trespassing, to then them dropping the case.
Well, I mean, everybody saw the video. It was very clear. We agreed to dismiss the case collectively. I mean, obviously, it was a baseless case. Our lawyers and their lawyers got together and made a quick decision that this should be not tried in any court at all. That we should come to some agreement to end this. I think if it had went to trial, it would have been more embarrassing in trial to lose in trial than it is now to have it summarily dismissed the way it is in about 11 days, in fact.
So they physically arrest you as the sitting mayor in a spot that now it's clear from evidence that you were lawfully in. They then later, as you say, quickly drop the case. The judge says this is not how to do law. Have they spoken to you about this since dropping the case? Has anyone in the Trump administration apologized, and should they?
No, I don't think they haven't, and I don't think they will.
Should they?
I mean, obviously, somebody should apologize
Because they now admit they were wrong.
for that, for sure.
And they arrested a sitting mayor. And by the way, either party, you go out to that extreme, then you drop it. So you say, okay, they were wrong. You think they should apologize to you.
Sure, I mean, something of the sort. I think what the acting or the U.S. attorney they had there prosecuting the case basically said after they reviewed the evidence and so forth and so on that they knew that they should drop this case. And
Well,
they
I'm
did.
sorry, who said that to you?
In a hearing today that
Yeah.
was said, the prosecutor that was the federal prosecutor that was there today. Basically after the judge asked him, did he have anything to say? He said, yeah, after reviewing the evidence and the videos and everything else, we agree that this case should in fact be dismissed. And that was their way of saying, we made a mistake. And I think that's about as far as these people are going to go because I think this is clearly being driven by that desire to do what was said earlier, to hurt people, to embarrass people, to humiliate folks. And they'll go further than that if they can.
Do you think they targeted you because of your membership in opposition party, because of how you look? Why do you think you were targeted?
Well, I think ultimately because I showed up at that place, because we spoke out, because we questioned the geo groups and their ability to be in this place without permits, without without the things that they need. They need a order to be in that place, and they have not presented any of that. And so, because we challenged that and we challenged the very idea of this, and Newark is a sanctuary city and all this other stuff, they told us early on that they were going to arrest people. They came in saying we're gonna arrest anybody, the attorney general, the sitting governor. They went after judges, and so to get a mayor in their mind is like, we're gonna get him, and everybody else is gonna fall in line.
And so usually in civil lawful politics, those exchanges are not done through the police power. You
Right.
just have a back and forth that say, we're going to win the argument. We're going to win over more people.
Right.
I want to put the chart back up because you mentioned something. You can lose track of how many people they threaten, but a lot of this has
Right.
focused on New Jersey for a range of reasons. And as you remind everyone, upper right, you have the governor and the AG. You're saying all of you were sort of warned, hey, you don't play ball with Trump, we're going to come arrest you.
For sure. I mean, and that's what's happening. I mean, they're threatening people who sing songs at events they don't like. I mean, this is bizarre. This is very authoritarian. People should see it for what it is. It's clear as day what's happening here. They asked the president about Congresswoman MacGyver. He said the days of woke is gone. Woke is not a crime. Like, to equate woke with a criminal arrest is dangerous in and of itself. Like, woke is just the opposite of being asleep. At the end of the day, there's nothing criminal about that.
And then when you came to this agreement, I did see in your statement, you said something that could be taken in a number of ways. So I kind of want to make sure we understand. He said, I've had strong relationships with prior U.S. attorneys, these federal prosecutors in the administration. I plan to speak with the current U.S. attorney about issues on which we can cooperate.
Right.
You're referring to the person who just oversaw a case that was so weak it fell apart.
Right.
But should we read anything into that about agreement or exchange of plans or policy, the way the mayor of New York said if the Trump administration treated him well, he would go with them on immigration?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is we've worked very well with our partners in New York ATF, DEA, the U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, with crime. We've reduced crime in Newark precipitously. Homicides are down 61%, basically because of our partners. And I said that to her in a video when she started coming in talking about Newark had MS-13, all this stuff, which was incorrect. And I basically said, we've worked with our partners, whether they were Democratic or Republican U.S. attorneys. And they were. I was there for Democratic and Republican U.S. attorney. Republican U.S. attorney under Trump's first term. And we had an incredible relationship and helping us reduce crime and violence in the city. And if that's their intent, then obviously we want to work with them to make that happen. But we can't get into political cheerleading and craziness that's happening, trying to push a MAGA agenda. That's not what.
Yeah, so that's not how you got there.
Yeah.
Then you look at how they add names. So your case collapsed. They're upbraided in court for it today after already dropping it. But very quickly, they find other foes and Democrats. Just in the past few days, we had the James Comey new investigation on the Seychelles Post. We had Congresswoman MacGyver, as you mentioned, kind of almost seemingly swapped in for you within a day from the same incident. And then this headline I'll put back up on the screen, Andrew Cuomo, there are Democrats who don't like him. He's running an open mayor's race. But while he's running right now as a candidate, you get this headline. Do you think the DOJ is actively abusing power to just put different Democrats under legal investigation? And if so, what should be done?
I think they are weaponizing these institutions and agencies, clearly. And you can see another headline day after day. I mean, they go after Bruce Springsteen, for God's sakes, going after all of these folks, other singers who sung at Democratic events and, any and everyone who they believe are opposed to their ideas, grabbing people up with green cards, people with visas because they say specific things or they don't agree with
So what do you do about
policies. Well, I think that one, more than anything, we rely on the courts. We have no real other recourse but the courts and the people, right?
Should there be sanctions against government lawyers who, if they knowingly pursue a case without evidence, should there be sanctions on them?
Sure. I think what the judge said today at our hearing was very salient, that, how dangerous this is and how serious it is, and that there should be consequences for these things. Specifically, if you know somebody is innocent, Brady forces the government to turn over information that they have, and when they know somebody is innocent, especially if you know someone is innocent, and you continue to pursue them, then you should be sanctioned for that, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Understood. You're speaking clearly, and in a way, I know you didn't choose this, but you've become a successful or winning example of how to face down what is an awesome power. Anyone who's been around the law knows a federal power to arrest, to investigate. So I just want to say that's not nothing. And then on the lighter note, it's your first time here on set with me on the beat. On a slower news day, I hope we could talk about Ms. Lauryn Hill.
We'd love to do that.
All right, we get to do that next time?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our thanks to the mayor. I want to tell folks coming up, we have a very important first-time guest on the beat, also on these issues, when we come back. Welcome back. We just heard from a Democratic mayor who clashed with the Trump administration, in part initially over disputes about immigration and an ICE detention facility. Indeed, it is one of the ongoing flashpoints in our country. And President Trump has appointed someone you may have heard of, an assertive and to some controversial border czar, Tom Homan. He is working with the president on these goals: stricter immigration, what they sometimes call mass deportations, and clearly in the courts testing powers to see how they can do more deportations than is usual, and according to the Supreme Court, sometimes than may be legal. He is making his Beat debut tonight. Trump border czar Tom Homan is here. Welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you coming on. I want to start with the overall numbers because part of the goal that the president has set and you're carrying out is to increase deportations, tighten the border. If we look at ICE deportations overall, and I'll put this up for you and the viewers, we see roughly stagnant, slight increase here on deportations under Trump as compared to what was the recent Biden period, while daily ICE arrests are up to a far, far higher degree, which we'll show. And so my question to you is, do you view this current result as the system working or as somehow insufficient, where you are clearly doing more arrests, but not necessarily significantly increasing deportation?
Well, let's look at the facts. I mean, you look at the Biden deportation numbers, he's adding Border Patrol deportations and ICE deportations. They had 12, 13,000 people a day coming across the border. They had over 2.5 million a year coming across the border. So, we can remove 100% of our border removals, and we still wouldn't beat Biden's removals because his border is out of control. So you can't have thousands of people coming across the border and many of them are removed. You can't compare that Trump administration. If we compare apples to apples, we got the most secure border in the history of this nation right now. We got went from a high of 13, 14,000 a day, 10,000 a day. Yesterday it was 221 total apprehensions. So we got a secure border. So we can't count all those removals that Biden has because he had an out of control border. If you compare ICE Biden, ICE Trump, we're arresting about 3 times more than Biden is doing on the interior. That's what.
So I hear the point you're making, which is significant because this is a big topic. So let me show, say, apples to apples, February to February. Those monthly numbers here, about 11 to 12, pretty similar. To your point, if we look at the other border, I think around 200,000. We'll pull this up. You do have that decrease of encounters under this current administration. So I want to give you a chance to explain what you think is going on. You're saying the encounter decrease is a good thing and it's because of your policies?
Absolutely. I mean, let's face it. Joe Biden's the first president in history of this nation who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. He destroyed everything we did. We handed him the most secure border in the history of the nation, and he unsecured it. And if you look at the numbers right now, based on the data, the most secure border in history of this nation.
But I'm asking you specifically, and we may not be quibbling.
Wait. We went over 10,000 apprehensions a day to 212 yesterday. Gotaways, an average day under Joe Biden, we had 1,800 or more gotaways every day. No gotaways. On video, drone traffic, sensor traffic.
And this is what I'm drawing you out on.
Gotaways yesterday. The gotaways yesterday were 39.
And we may not be quibbling. We'll get to how it works. But I'll put the decrease chart again. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. It's not, for example, macro factors or international economy. You're saying that drop on the encounters is because of your tougher enforcement policies. Do I understand that right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when we look at that, you say, all right, that's a decrease, and that's part of what you set out to do. And then I want to get in with you, since it's your first time here, how you're doing it. Because as you know, part of the efforts have been ruled so far illegal. And so you're in law enforcement, you have a big job, and DOJ has a big job.
Nothing concerning the border has been ruled illegal. We put President Trump put the Remain in Mexico program back in, the third safe country agreements, he ended catch and release. Federal law says this: if you come to our border without proper documentation enter the United States, you shall be detained. Not maybe, not think about it, not release millions in the United States.
Yeah, immigration. So
you shall be detained, and that's what we're doing.
So immigration detention
laws enacted by Congress by the numbers.
Immigration detention powers are certainly broad.
Nothing concerning.
But you made a statement
concerning the border security, the most secure border in history of this nation. Nothing we've done on the border has been ruled illegal.
So you say nothing's been ruled illegal. Let me read you some court rulings and let you respond as a representative of the administration. A judge says that this administration under current law does not, quote, possess the lawful authority to detain Venezuelan aliens, transfer them from within the United States, or remove them from the country. We'll put that up on the screen, but that's on the Alien Enemies Act. Another judge said the White House failed to prove the existence of the invasion or conflict required to justify invoking that act. Justice Sotomayor, and I'll let you respond, in a ruling that, as you may know, 7-2, included every Trump appointee on the Supreme Court, said U.S. citizens, under what you were advocating, could be, quote, taken off the streets, forced onto planes. History is, she said, no stranger to such lawless regimes, but this nation's system of laws is designed to prevent, not enable their rise. She said that in a dissent on a case where ultimately later, as you know, you've been blocked from using those wartime powers. So you have to acknowledge those rulings, right? You're not disagreeing that the Supreme Court paused some of those powers.
No, but you're talking about two different things. We're talking about the border, securing the border. You're talking about interior enforcement, two different things. So there has been some court cases on interior enforcement methods or operations. It has
You're talking about
nothing
where
to do
you
with
pick
border
people up.
security.
Yep.
Border security is something separate.
Right.
So,
I understand the
as far as
distinction you're
Alien
making,
Enemies
so I'll let
Act,
you respond. I'll let you respond on the interior. In the interior, these folks who are, to keep it simple, already here, you've been overruled. I assume you know that, and you're going to follow those Supreme Court rulings, yes?
Well, absolutely. Look, the Alien Enemies Act, here's my position. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a cop, been an immigration officer since 1984. The President of the United States invoked his authorities under Alien Enemies Act to remove who we consider enemies of this country. Trinidad Agua and MS-13 are designated terrorists. And we would use the act enacted by Congress, follow the rules within that act, and play by the rules. People need to understand the Alien Enemies Act has a lesser due process system than the Title VIII
It does, if you're at war with that country.
We think we did the right thing, and we think we did the right thing. We'll continue to litigate it. I mean,
do you think
President Trump made a commitment?
Do you think we're at war?
We're going to move the worst of the worst.
Do you think we're at war with El Salvador?
Arresting criminals. You don't have to be at war with the Alien Enemies Act. They also can be a predatory incursion. That's what we believe happened, a predatory incursion. We know that Trinidad Agua has infiltrated law enforcement in Venezuela, the military, and the government. We believe Maduro regime was involved with sending thousands upon thousands here to unsettle this country.
But I guess the point
There's
is now that
intelligence reports that back that up.
Yeah, and I'm trying to go back and forth with you because I'm going to give you plenty of time, Mr. Homan. But when you look at Venezuela or these other countries, the law says you have to have a declared war. And so, yes, I understand you're not a lawyer, but we don't.
That's not what the law says.
Go ahead.
That's not what it says. A declared war or a predatory incursion. We said there's a predatory incursion occurred. Venezuelan government, Maduro regime was involved, was sending thousands of Venezuelans to this country to unsettle it, to Americans dying from fentanyl they're pushing through the streets, through the criminal acts they've done. I just left New York City. We indicted 27 members of the TDA under a RICO statute for sex trafficking, gun trafficking, drug trafficking.
Sure, and those are individual criminal cases.
We have a strong case of
and Mr. Homan, I'll tell you, so you have the benefit of knowing this is a Texas-appointed judge. I have the quote on the screen. This term invaded concerns warfare. So not people crossing what you're calling predatory. But anyway, my key point to you is now the Supreme Court limited that. You're going to follow that unless and until the courts change it. Is that correct?
Of course we won't follow the Supreme Court, but I'll tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to stop arresting MS-13 members and TDA members. We have to hold them in detention. That's what we'll do, but they're not going to walk the streets of this nation, not under the Trump administration.
Understood. And I think we've covered some ground. I got your point on the difference between border and interior. We talked about the courts. You're saying you're going to follow those rulings. I want to turn to, as you may have seen, we had Mayor Baraka on earlier. It was an immigration-related offense, as you know, where the Trump DOJ accused him of trespassing, physically arrested him, indicted him, took him to court. And here we are, a week and a half later, the whole case falls apart. He says no one has apologized to him from the administration. What do you say to him tonight?
I think it was a ridiculous interview. I listened to it. Look, he's running for higher political office. He got exactly what he wanted. He went there to get on camera and cause a ruckus, and that's what he got. And as far as the case falling apart, I think it'd be only fair to invite Alina Habba to your show to discuss why the case wasn't further prosecuted.
She's
Criminal
fully
cases are
invited, and
negotiated every
you're on
day.
here now from the Trump administration.
And
I mean, yes, we'll have people on.
But you're assuming the case fell apart. You're assuming the case fell apart.
Sir, I'm not assuming. Hold on. I'm not assuming anything, sir. Sir, I'm not assuming anything. I'm quoting from, sir, I'm not assuming anything. I'm quoting from the Justice Department that you work with as law enforcement. They went to court today. They said in court, under penalty of perjury, they made a mistake and dropped the case. Not an assumption. I'm referring to what your own administration's doing.
They used the terms, the case fell apart?
They use the terms, if you want to get into it, that they made a mistake. Yeah, the case is over. They dropped it. I don't think there's a dispute that they dropped the case.
Well, look, here's what I know about the case. The mayor was on the property. He was asked numerous times to leave and refused to leave. And as far as the facility itself, I'll put that facility up against any New Jersey facility, any county jail, any state prison. This facility had the highest detention standards in the industry. There's nothing to force your way in on. Make it, we do oversight visits all the time. Do it the right way. Contact guys, go through the screening, enter the facility, and see anything you want to see. But what they did is force their way in the facility, refused to leave when asked to leave, and the congresswoman, she put hands on an ICE officer.
All right, so you're jumping to her. Let's finish. I'll tell you what, sir. Let's finish with the mayor. Then we can talk about her if you brought her up. Here's what Mayor Baraka said just tonight.
The federal prosecutor that was there today, basically after the judge asked him, did he have anything to say? He said, yeah, after reviewing the evidence and the videos and everything else, we agree that this case should in fact be dismissed. And that was their way of saying, we made a mistake. And I think that's about as far as these people are going to go, because I think this is clearly being driven by that desire to do what was said earlier, to hurt people, to embarrass people, to humiliate folks. And they'll go further than that if they can.
Independent reports say he was initially allowed past the fence, I'm reading, then invited past the gates before he was arrested, seemingly contradicting accusations he'd barged into the facility. He was asked to leave multiple times and, quote, exited voluntarily. That's according to an independent account. There's videos on that. Federal agents wearing face coverings and fatigues appeared outside the gates to arrest the mayor. I said I'd give you time to respond. Go ahead.
Well, that's a different account than I got. Again, I wasn't there. I'm counting on the account provided by GEO officials and ICE officials. So again, I wasn't there. It played out in court, but I think that using the terms "the case fell apart," I think is wrong. I think they reached terms, and again, I'm not.
They dropped the case in court, and they were rebuked by a judge today.
That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I understand you weren't there, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. But if you weren't there, but I'm showing you what happened.
This is being done. For the mayor to add this is being done to hurt people and embarrass people. And, let's remember, no one weaponized the Justice Department more than the Biden administration did, for God's sakes, against President Trump, people affiliated with him, whether it's, it's a Bannon, whether it's, a member of the Trump administration that they locked up. I mean, no one weaponized the Justice Department and the federal government more than the Biden administration did. So I find it shocking that the Democratic Party are going to talk about us, weaponize the Justice Department. It's just ridiculous.
Well, is that what you're saying? They did it so you can do it?
That's not what I'm saying at all. But to make the allegation that we're weaponizing the Justice Department, they crossed the line. That congressman crossed the line. She put hands on an ICE officer.
Okay, so we'll move to her.
Well, I want from day one. You can.
We'll move to the congressman, but just to finish the point here, when you look at the investigations, it's a lot of critics of Donald Trump and Democrats. Can you think of or name any public official or individual who's in these crosshairs other than those folks? I've got some up on the screen. It goes from Cuomo to Comey to Springsteen at this point.
Those who break the law should be prosecuted. And I don't know if any of these people have been prosecuted. That list I'm looking at the screen now, if any of them people have been prosecuted other than the congresswoman and other than two judges that impeded ICE and tried to harbor and conceal an illegal alien and impede their enforcement efforts. So that list shows I can't see everybody on that list, but are you telling me everybody on the list has been indicted?
No, it says investigations.
They'll be indicted or arrested if they violate the law.
No, it's investigations, but the fact that so many in these first 110 days, some of them which are announced on social media or other avenues before the defendants or even read their rights and given information, raises the question that it looks like to some that this is political targeting. The ACLU says it's autocratic targeting. And you respond tonight by saying, well, they did it. The Democrats did it. Well, if they did it, that's your view. Does that make it okay? Are you? That's what I'm asking.
I said, wait a minute. I said I find it shocking that they would accuse the Trump administration of weaponizing against their opponents when they did the exact thing during the Biden administration. I'm not making any comparison. I'm just saying I find it shocking for them to make that claim when they did it for 4 years. I'm not making any claim we're weaponizing anything. I don't think President Trump's weaponizing anything against his political opponents. We're enforcing the law. We're investigating crimes. If there's evidence that crime has been acted upon, then they need to be charged. No one's, in the last 4 years, we heard no one's above the law. We're either our members of Congress, either our judges, and either our other people. You've crossed the line, you violated law, you should be indicted, you should be charged.
So I know you brought up Congressman McIver. I said I'd give you time on that. The reports here that part of the narrative about her has been, quote, contradicted by the video footage and witnesses who were at the scene. It was a scuffle. That's on video. She says it's intimidation. I know you have said that she was, quote, unprofessional. And people in public life can agree or disagree on who in whichever a branch of government are professional. But does it concern you that someone who in a co-equal branch is supposed to oversee ICE, I'm sure you don't deny her elected authority to do that along with every other member of Congress in both parties, does it concern you that now it looks like, according to her lawyers, that the law enforcement agencies are trying to intimidate her out of that enforcement? And do you really think the video suggests that she was physically assaulting and battering armed agents? Because it looks more like a kind of out-of-control scuffle.
She claims she was there on oversight. We open facilities of oversight every day across this country. There are, all you have to do is show up to the facility in a professional manner and request a visit. Go through screening and go see it. We are proud of that facility. I want everybody to go look at it. Maybe all the false narrative will stop about how ICE's detention standards are just so terrible. But she put hands, she shoved an officer, she put hands on her officer. That's unacceptable. These ICE officers, and when you cause a ruckus like that, then that makes that facility unsecure, because officers who should be dealing with the prisoners, very serious prisoner criminals in that facility, they're dealing with the ruckus outside. It makes the facility unsafe. It's unsafe for the officers, and it's unsafe for the general public. We take the security of those facilities very seriously. She knows how to do oversight. You go there and request to look at it. Don't barge your way in. And regardless of what happens, you don't put hands and you don't shove an ICE officer who's there to protect the facility and protect the public from the people in that facility.
You think DOJ will win that case?
What I saw, I think she put hands on an officer. She shoved an officer. She needs to pay the consequences. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, they dropped the one.
I spent 40 years doing this.
No, I know you have experience.
This is the same week. We're in the same. No, we're in the same week. We're in New York. We're in Washington D.C. Supporting the men and women, law enforcement, state, local, and federal, who gave the ultimate sacrifice. It was Law Enforcement Week, Police Week. I attended memorials for Border Patrol and ICE. I buried Border Patrol agents. I buried ICE agents, and I met with many families of fallen officers from federal, state, and local law enforcement. We were supposed to celebrate law enforcement. We got a member of Congress putting her hands on one at a facility.
All right, well,
very unprofessional conduct.
I said I'd give you time on that.
The mayor show up for one reason.
Okay.
He wanted press time. He got it.
Well, Mr. Homan, like I said, we heard from the mayor. I'm giving you time on that. I wanted to get clarity on another issue when you appeared with Democratic Mayor Adams in New York. As you know, there was a lot of controversy over the way the DOJ handled that case. Lawyers there in government service resigned over it. You went on Fox News and you said you guys had an agreement. The headlines out of that were you had mass resignations. The prosecutors say the justice asked them to admit wrongdoing. Trump border czar warns Mayor Adams, this is, I'm sure you remember, not to violate the agreement on DOJ to help you with policy, with enforcement. If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City and we won't be sitting on a couch, you said. Were you referring to the threat that if he doesn't play ball or cooperate, that DOJ could revive his case, investigate, or charge him?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It was two cops talking, two career cops having a good time. He's been a great partner. And let's make something clear. I started talking to Mayor Adams in November. long before this whole criminal thing came up. Our agreement to get back in Rikers Island was because I sat down with a cop, mayor, but a career cop, who agreed with me that he doesn't want to be an immigration officer. I don't want to be an immigration officer, but let us send to Rikers Island so we can arrest an illegal alien criminal public safety
So
threat
where would you
before
be,
they go
though, if
back
not
to
on the
streets
couch?
and
What,
recommit an offense.
what did you mean? Because you see, the case had just been dropped. A lot of pattern
Because he
here.
made
What
a
did you
commitment
mean?
to get us back. He made a commitment to get back in Rikers Island. So we talk cop to cop all the time. Well, you better keep your promise and play the rest of the tape. And he came back at me and saying and I'm going to hold you accountable if we don't do things right.
But you're disclaiming. Okay, but you're disclaiming the idea that
it
it
has
would relate.
nothing to do. He had nothing to do with that criminal investigation. Nothing.
And finally, I wanted to give you.
We were talking before. We were talking months before that issue even came up.
Okay. I want to give you a chance on one other item since I've had you and we've given you time. Tonight, you said you'll be following the Supreme Court orders. As you know, some Trump officials, including yourself, have sometimes suggested otherwise. This is what you said briefly on Fox News about judges.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Tonight, I wanted to address that with you. You also said tonight, opposing that you will follow what judges in the Supreme Court rules. So is that your final answer on that?
No, what I said, that clip you just played, the same thing I told you about 7 minutes ago. We're going to keep arresting TDAs. They're not going to stop us. We're going to keep arresting MS-13 members.
Sure.
If we can't remove them through the AEA, we're going to keep them in the detention. They're not walk the
But
streets.
consistent with what the judges rule.
Keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep arresting them and taking them off the street. That's what I meant. I never said we're going to violate a court order. I said we're going to continue doing what we're doing and taking these people off the street. That is what I meant when I said that.
That's what you meant. Consistent with court rulings.
President Trump has said he'll obey the rulings of the Supreme Court. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But when I said, I don't care what they think, we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep arresting TDA and MS-13. Maybe we can't remove them as quickly as we want under AEA right now, but they're not going to be walking the streets. If we have to wait for Title VIII proceedings, we'll do that. But they're not going to walk the streets of America under President Trump.
Yeah. Well, look, I appreciate you making time to come on. There's a lot going on in this area. We covered a lot of ground, including policy and past statements. So I hope that adds journalistic light to the process. People can make up their own minds. Tom Homan from the Trump administration, thank you for making time for us tonight.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're going to finish a break. We'll be back with Counselor John Flannery. We're back with former federal prosecutor John Flannery. Welcome. Tonight we heard from the mayor of Newark after facing down the Trump administration's indictment. It's dropped. We heard from the border czar for the first time this year on this program. Your thoughts?
Well, I want to thank you for chasing Mr. Holman around the room. It's kind of interesting that he would be upset about a congresswoman in a crowded place, trying to sort herself out, and that would be charged with a crime because he cares so much about agents when he works for a man who pardoned all those people who went to the Hill, resulting in deaths afterwards, and an abridgment of the law of historic proportions. Also, it's very interesting. When he first speaks about the mayor, he says, "Oh, I know what happened, and he was just trying to do this, that, and the other thing." But then when you question him, he didn't know the facts. But he had an opinion without the facts, and that suggests to me that it was all political hit, just as you were suggesting, or at least inquiring about, that I think was confirmed by the mayor in a very polite way. He's got quite a nice way about himself. And then if you want to put it all together in a box, that is the fact that the facts don't matter and the law don't matter. We have a guy speaking who says he doesn't care what the justices think. How judges think? How do you get past that? Did he specifically say this?
I think that was important to hear because we've covered what the problems appear to be. At the same time, the president and the border czar, again tonight, wanting to be seen as people who do follow the law. What do you see in that potential gap?
Well, the best illustration, there are a whole bunch of illustrations of that, but let me choose a couple of poignant ones. One is you have a U.S. attorney come out and say, oh, by the way, sure, the charges are dismissed, but we should be able to shame them. When I was in AUSA in the Southern District of New York, you did not talk about a case. You did
Yeah.
not talk about an investigation. And when we had an indictment, we had a release that tried to track the documents, and that we could only answer very few questions. And if you didn't, you were going to be shown the door. And I've in private practice had prosecutors say this publicly in a community. Yeah, now we've dismissed the case because Flannery brought this motion, but this teaches them a lesson. What does it teach them? It teaches that if you're unjust in a prosecution and you let it go forward and you say that's still okay,
Yeah.
you're reducing the law.
And
And
finally,
and
I
the
got about 40 seconds, John. Your view of what is this mounting evidence of targeting Democrats and critics, even as they appear to want people not to think that's happening.
overwhelming. I mean, the irony of the hit against former Governor Cuomo is that Trump, who hates him for his criticism, Cuomo's criticism of him, he's probably helped him in the mayoral race because he would have preferred somebody that was a little more fungible and pliable. The other ones, it's very interesting that they select people, persons of color, and persons in position to succeed in politics and to go forward. So it's like a combination of how would you say it? Political revenge, and also a tactic strategy to compromise these people as leaders, so that he can, with dollars and cents and other lies, push someone else forward. So I think it's a critical time. We're dealing with a political situation that requires more people to get up off their hands and call it for what it is. And this is outrageous. The Ministry of Truth lives and thrives in the Trump administration, being that group in 1984 that distorted facts and law.
Right. And it's important points you raise. And then, as we saw, I believe, in some of that exchange, and of course, what happened in court today with the judge rebuking the DOJ under Trump, many times the facts matter. In that now aborted case, not only do they matter, they ended the case within 11 days. John Flannery, batting cleanup for us tonight. Good to see you. We're going to finish a quick break. When we come back, legal strategies to stop the gift grift. That's according to Norm Eisen, coming up. Democrats said no. Many Republicans said no, but President Trump is barreling forward, saying yes, with the Pentagon announcing they have, quote, accepted the very controversial $400 million luxury jet as a parent gift from Qatar. The plane creates security risks. Even Ted Cruz said that. Experts say it will be ripped up piece by piece and rebuilt to address those espionage risks. And that could run $1 billion. Who pays for that? You do, the taxpayer. Obama's former ethics czar, Norm Eisen, tells The Beat there should be lawsuits, and they could win because this was not a gift approved by Congress. That's the update, a story we'll stay on, and we'll be right back. Meanwhile, in Congress tonight, the top House committee is still mulling the Trump spending bill, a hearing that actually has been raging, if you can call it that, for 17 hours. But it's worth it in terms of how much this affects people. The bill would try to do many things, but most importantly, according to some sponsors, is helping the wealthy, as the Times explains, at the cost of federal money for Americans' health care, nutrition, education, clean energy programs. That's what would have to be swapped out for these benefits for some of the richest people in the country. Also, cuts to Medicare to the tune of hundreds of billions. And all of this means that about 8 million plus people would lose their current health insurance. That's a new change with everything going on, people losing Medicaid. It adds trillions to the deficit because even with those, what they call offsets, they still want to give so much to the upper income, the top 1%, that we would be in debt. Axios says it is Donald Trump's $4 trillion deficit bomb, a battle between some MAGA hardliners and what passed today in this climate as moderates in this Congress.
Failure is simply not an option. We have to get this done.
I don't think it could be done today. I mean, the runway is short.
We are going to hurt some people with Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security.
Well, I think actually we're further away from a deal. This bill actually got worse overnight.
Can you support it? No, we've got lots of work to go.
There's a long way to go.
But I'm not going to sacrifice my constituents and throw them under the bus in a bad faith negotiation.
I think we have unbelievable unity.
The sound you hear is some Republicans fact-checking Trump's claims of unity or that this is a great idea. Republicans do run Congress, so we'll see what happens on that one. That does it for us.